Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a folktale. It is 1980s, but it doesn't have a particular date, just 1980s in general. This is the Seawife and the Crone. I apologise, I have a sore throat. Definitely a little bit hoarse, so I can't help it. I didn't particularly record a story yesterday because of that reason. That's why I'm doing one today. There was before now a poor old fisher. He was not catching any much fish. There rose a sea wife at the side of his boat, and she said, "Well, Duncan, are you getting any fish?" "No," said he, "I'm getting no fish at all." "What will you give me," said the sea wife, "if I send you plenty of fish?" "Well then," said he, "I have but little to give. Will you give me the first son you have?" said the sea wife. "I would give you that if I were to have a son." "But there was not, and there will not be, a son of mine," said the old man. "I and my wife are grown, and so old." "Name all you have," said the sea wife. "I have but an old mare of a horse, an old dog, myself and my wife. Those are all the creatures of the great world that are mine," said he. "Here then," said the sea wife, "are 3 grains for you, and you shall give your wife this very night, and 3 others to the dog, and 3 to the mare, and these 3 likewise you shall plant behind your house, and in their own time your wife shall have 3 sons, the mare 3 foals, and the dog 3 pups, and there will grow 3 trees behind your house, and these trees will be a sign. When one of the sons dies, one of the trees will wither. Now, take yourself home and remember me when your first son is 3 years of age, and you yourself will get plenty of fish after this." Everything happened as the sea wife said, and the old man got plenty of fish. But when the end of time was nearing, he grew sorrowful and heavy-hearted, while he failed each day as it came. On the namesake of the day, he went to fish, but he did not take his son with him. The sea wife rose at the end of the boat and said, "Did you bring your son with you here to me?" "I did not bring him," said the old man. "I forgot that this was the day." "Yes, yes, then," said the sea wife, "you shall go 4 other years of him, to try if it will be easy for you to part from him." The fisher went home full of glee and delight, and he had got 4 other years of his son, and he kept on fishing and getting plenty of fish. But at the end of the 4 years, sorrow and woe struck him, and he took not a meal, and he did not a turn, and his wife could not think what was ailing him. This time he did not know what to do, but he set it before him, and he would not take his son. He went to fish, and the sea wife rose at the side of the boat, and she asked him, "Did you bring your son here to me?" "Ah," said the old man, "I forgot him this time too." "Go home then," said the sea wife, "and at the end of 7 years after this you are sure to remember me. But then it will not be the easier for you to part with him, but you shall get fish." The old man went home full of joy. He had got 7 other years of him, another 7 of his son, and before 7 years passed, the old man thought he himself would be dead, and he would meet the sea wife no more. But when the end of 7 years were nearing, the old man was not without care and trouble. He had rest neither day neither night. The eldest son asked his father one day if anyone was besetting him. The old man said that someone was, but that belonged neither to his son nor to anybody else. The lad said that he had to know what it was. His father told him at last how the matter lay, how it had been told between him and the sea wife. "Let not that put you in any trouble," said the son. I shall go to her. You shall not. You shall not go, my son, said the old man, even though I should not get fish for ever. If you will not let me, said the son, go to the smithy, and have the smith make me a great strong sword, and I shall go to the end of fortune. His father went to the smithy, and the smith made the sword for him. The lad grasped it and gave it a shake or two, and it went in 100 splinters. He asked his father to go to the smithy, and to please, could you get him another sword? A sword that was twice the weight, and his father did so, and likewise it happened that the next sword it broke into 2 halves. Back went the old man to the smithy, and the smith made a great sword. It was like something he'd never made before. There's your sword for you, said the smith, and the fist must be good that plays the blade. Then the old man gave the sword to his son, and he brandished it a shake or two. This is a sword, said he. I shall go where there is not a drop of salt water. The next morning he put a saddle on the black horse that the mare had, and he put the world under his head, and the black dog was by his side. When he had got on a bit, he found the carcass of a sheep beside the road, and at the carrion were a wolf, a falcon, and an otter. He came down off the horse, and he divided the carcass amongst the 3. 3 shares to the wolf, 2 shares to the otter, and a share to the falcon. For this, said the wolf, if swiftness of foot or sharpness of tooth will aid you, remember me, and I shall be at your side. Said the otter, if the swimming of foot on the ground of a pool will aid you, remember me, and I shall be at your side. And the falcon said, if hardship comes on you, where swiftness and wing or crook of claw will aid you, remember me, and I shall be by your side. The lad went from there till he reached the king's house, and he took service as a cowherd, and his wages were to be according to the milk of the cattle. He went away with the cattle, and the grazing was only bare, and when he took them home, they had not much milk, and his meat and drink were poor that night. The next day he went on further with the cattle, and at last he came to a place exceedingly grassy, in a green glen, of which he never saw the like. But about the time when he should walk behind the cattle for taking them back homewards, he heard a noise. Farum, farum, little stones going under, farum, farum, great gravel going over, and he saw a giant coming with a sword in hand. Hi-you, hi-you, hi-a-crack, said the giant. It is long since been my teeth, rusted seeking your flesh. The cattle are mine, they are my march, and the dead man are you. They may be easier to say than to do, said the lad. To grips they go, himself and the giant. He drew the great, clean, sweeping sword, and in the play of the battle and the black dog leaped on the giant's back. The lad swung his sword, and the head was off. The giant was in a twinkling. The lad leaped back on the black horse, and he went to look for the giant's house. He reached a door, and in the haste that the giant had made a run for him, he left the gate open. There was magnificent things everywhere. There was money aplenty, but the lad took not a thing from the giant's house. And when the cattle were milked that night, there was a flood of milk, and the king had to send for carpenters to make milk pules. Such milk I'd never seen in the king's dairy, not a day. And the lad got great good feelings. He got a good feeding too, meat and drink without stint. The lad went on for some time in this way, but at last the glen grew bare of grass, and the grazing was not so good. But he thought he would go a little further forward. In on the giant's land, he saw the great park of grass. He went back for the cattle, and he put them into the park. They were but a short time grazing in the park when the lad heard a greater and louder clatter than ever. Farum, farum, little stones going under. Farum, farum, great gravel growing over. And he saw the wild giant coming, full of rage and madness. Hi-you, ha-hoo, ha-grack, said the giant. A drink of your blood shall quench my thirst tonight. That 'tis easier than to say than to do, said the lad. And at each other they went. At length and at last it seemed as if the giant would get the victory over the lad. But his dog, that he called, again with the spring, caught the giant by the neck, and the lad struck off his head. He went home very tired that night, but the king's cattle had the milk. He followed herding in this way for some time. Time and time again he did the same. But there came a particular night where he came home, and instead of getting hello and good luck from the dairymaid of all the house, they were all crying and woe. He asked what was the cause. The dairymaid said that the water beast with 3 heads was in the lock, and the water beast was to get feeding of flesh and man flesh every year, and the choice had come on the king's daughter that year. And in the morning, said the dairymaids, she is to meet the water beast. But there is a suitor yonder who is going to save her. What suitor is that? Said the lad. Oh, said the dairymaid, he is a cock-eyed, carroty-headed cook, and when he kills the water beast, he will marry the king's daughter, for the king has said that he who could save his daughter should get her for marrying. But in the morning, when it was time near, the king's daughter and the cock-eyed, carroty-headed cook went to meet the water beast, and they reached the black quarry at the upper end of the lock. They were but a little time there when the water beast stirred in the middle of the lock, and the cock-eyed, carroty-headed cook, seeing this terror with 3 heads, he took fright and he slunk away, and he hid himself. And the king's daughter was under fear and trembling, with no one at all to save her. She looked and saw the lad coming on his black horse, and his black dog moving after. There is gloom on your face, girl, said the lad. What are you doing here? I shall not be here long, said the king's daughter, for the water beast is coming to take me away. I shall stay with you, said the lad, and keep you company for a while. Then he laid his head in her lap to sleep, and she combed his hair. But if you sleep, said the king's daughter, what will rouse you? Rousing for me, said the lad, is to put the gold ring that is on your finger on my little finger. They were not long there when the king's daughter saw a dark squall coming from the west, and the lock water running east, and the waves were waxing, and the squall, the water beast blowing spray and spindle drift. She took the ring from her finger and put it on the little finger of the lad. He awoke, and he went to meet the water beast with his sword and his dog. The lad and the water beast fell upon each other, with rattling of stones and splishing of billows, till man and dog, doing the best they could, the lad swept off one of the water beast's heads. If I had a draught of fair water, said the beast, I would tear you from pieces now. If I had a draught of red wine, said the lad, I would kill you today. If one head is off, there are two on, said the beast, and it drove the lock in the foam from end to end, and in a twinkling was gone. I am safe for one night, said the king's daughter, but the beast will come again, and for ever, until the other two heads are off. The lad caught the water beast's head, and he drew a withy through it, and he told his king's daughter to take it with her. She went home, and with the head on her shoulder, and the lad went to herd the cows. The king's daughter had not gone far when the cock-eyed, carroty-headed cock saw her, and he said he would kill her if she did not say that it was him that took the head off the water beast. Oh, said she, I shall say it. What else am I going to say? Took the head off the beast, but you. Clearly it was you. They reached the king's house, and the head was on the cock-eyed, carroty cook's shoulder. And in the morning they went away again, and there was no question at all but that this hero would save the king's daughter. They reached the same place, and they were not there long when the fearful water beast stirred in the middle of the lock, and the cock-eyed, carroty-headed cook slunk away as he had done before the day before, and came up the lad on the black horse. Come up and take breath, said the king's daughter. The lad lay down at the side of the king's daughter, and she combed his hair, and he said, If I sleep before the beast comes, rouse me. What is rousing for you? She said to him yet again. Rousing for me is to put the ring that is in your ear in mine, said the lad. The lad was not long asleep before the king's daughter saw. The water got dark, the lock run east, the waves big and girly. She cried, Rouse, rouse, but he would not wake. So she took the ring from her ear and put it in his, and at once he was on his feet and down to the lock to meet the water beast, and they went to it, spluttering, splashing, raving and roaring, till the lad, just before night, cut off another head. The lad put the head on withy, leaped on his horse, and took himself off to the herding. The king's daughter went home, and the cock-eyed, carroty-headed cook came out of the hole where he'd been hiding, and obviously he said he would kill her if she did not say it was him. Of course, she said, who else would it be? Who else would be the hero? If the king was hopeful the first night, he was now sure that the cock-eyed, carroty-headed cook would save his daughter, and there was no question at all that the water beast would be dead in the morning. The next day the two went together, and the cock-eyed, carroty-headed cook hid in his hole, and the lad came on his horse. What is rousing for you this time? Said the king's daughter. Rousing for me, said the lad, is for you to take the other ring from your other ear and put it in my other ear. And when the water beast came, she put the other ring in her other ear, and he awoke. She put it in his ear, but it says her other ear. I'm not sure why. And the water beast, he went. And if roaring and raving and roaring were on them the other days, then this day was horrible. If I had a draught of water, I would win yet, said the beast. If I had a draught of wine, said the lad, I would kill you. But no matter of that, the king's daughter heard him, and she took wine and ran to the lad, and he drank a draught. If two heads are off, one is on, said the beast. Better would be three, said the lad, and he swept off the last head, and the beast was a pool of water and a heap of sand. The lad drew a withy through the last head, and the king's daughter took it home. The cock-eyed, carroty cook came out of his hole, and was to marry the king's daughter the next day. But the king said that first he should take the heads off the withy without cutting it. For, said the king, who should take the heads off the withy but the man that put the heads on? The cock-eyed, carroty cook tried them, but he could not take the heads off, nor could any of the household, though they all tried. The king asked if there was anyone else about the house, and they said the lad was over the cowherd, and he'd not tried yet. The lad was sent for, of course, and he was not long in throwing the heads hither and thither off the withy. But stop a bit, my lad, said the king's daughter. The man that took the heads off the water beast, he has the ring from my finger, and the rings from my 2 ears. The lad put his hand in his pocket, and he threw the rings on the board. You are my man, said the king's daughter. The king was not so pleased, but they were married that same night. Now they were happy and everything was going well, and one day they took themselves to the salt shore. But while they were straying and playing amongst the reels and the stones, and the reefs and the ebb, the sea wife rose and made a rush and seized the lad and said, It is many a day since you were promised to me, and now I have you. And then she swallowed him up. The king's daughter was mournful, tearful, blind, sorrowful, for her married man, an old smith, met her, and she told of how it had befallen. Go, said the smith, and take everything you have that is finer than another, and spread them in every same place where the sea wife took away your man. So did she did. The sea wife put up her nose from the water and said, Fine is your jewellery, king's daughter. Finer than that is the jewel you took from me, said she. Give me the sight of my husband, and you shall get anything, all of it as you choose to see. The sea wife put the lad up into her mouth. Deliver him to me, said the king's daughter, and you shall get that you see. The sea wife put the lad onto the shore, and then took all of the jewels, and took the king's daughter, and left the lad sorrowful, mournful, and tearful, wandering down and up the banks, by day and by night. The old smith met him. Well, said the smith, there is but one way to win back the king's daughter, and to kill the sea wife. In the middle of the sea there is an island, and in the middle of the island there is a white-footed hind of the slenderest legs, and the swiftest step, and though she may be caught, there will spring a raven out of her, and though the raven may be caught, there will spring a trout out of her. In the mouth of the trout there is an egg, and in the egg is the breath of the sea wife, and if the egg breaks, she is dead. Now, there was no getting to the island, for the sea wife would sink each boat and raft that would even try. The lad thought that he would leap the water with the black horse, and so he did, and the black dog with one bound after him. In the middle of the island the lad saw the white-footed hind of the slenderest legs, and the swiftest step, and he let the black dog after her. But when the black dog was on one side of the island, the hind was on the other. So fleet was she. Oh, said the lad, I wish the wolf of carcass of flesh were here. No sooner did he speak than the wolf was with him, and after the hind did catch her, that a raven sprung out. Oh, said the lad, now is the hour of the grey falcon. And straightway the falcon appeared, and was after the raven, and was not long in fetching the raven to the earth. But the raven fell out, jumped out the trout now from the raven, from her and into the sea. Otter, said the lad, it is time for you to be with me now. The otter was with him, and out on the sea he leaped and brought the trout to shore. But an egg fell from the trout's mouth. The lad sprang and put his foot over the egg, and the sea wife let out a roar, and she said, Do not break the egg, and you shall get all of you ask of me. Give me back the king's daughter, said the lad. In the wink of an eye, the king's daughter was by his side, and when he got hold of her hand in both hands, he let his foot down on the egg, and the sea wife died, for it was her breath that was in the egg. They left everything there. She was left there, and they went home, and there was delight and smiling in the king's house that night. The king put great honour on, and for the lad great honour too, and he was a great man with the king. So the lad and his wife were happy, and everything going well. And they were walking one day when the lad saw a little black castle over against him, and he asked his wife what castle that might be, and who was living in it. "No one goes to that castle," said his wife, "for no one who has gone there has yet come back to tell the tale." "This very night," said the lad, "I shall see who is living in that castle." Go not," said his wife. "There never went a man to there and return." "Be that it pleases," said the lad, and he went and took himself to the castle. When he reached the door, a little flattering crone met him, combing her hair. "Where are you from, father of my fondness, and mother of my love?" said she. "Come to tell me your tale. Come till I tell you mine." And with many words she willed him, till he went in. Then he took up a magic club and hit him over the head, and at once he fell and was made a pillar of stone. On this night there was woe in the king's house, and in the morning there was wailing in the fisher's hut, for the tree that seemed to wither, and the father's middle son said that his brother was dead, and that he was going to find him. He mounted the black horse, and his black dog followed him. He went further and further, and he went to find fish, and fish home in hand, and it grew into a gold-hilted sword that gave him wisdom and learning. Away he went. Each road was even, and every path smooth, and the black dog ran the track completely straight alongside him. And right to the king's house. There never were created two more alike than he and his brother, and the king's daughter thought he was her own man. He did not know how in the world he could manage to keep from his brother's chamber that night, so he told the king's daughter that he had laid a heavy wager that he would not go to bed, but he would sleep at the table in the front of the bed, and he did so till morning. Then he looked out and he saw the little black castle, and said to the king's daughter, "What is that castle?" "Did I not tell you yesterday?" said the king's daughter. "You did not," said he. So she told him, and he said that he must go, happen hard or soft as it was might. He went to the little castle of the crone, and just as it befell the eldest brother, so in each way it befell the middlest son, and with one blow of her magic club, the crone stretched him beside his brother as a pillar of stone. The old fisher looked out in the morning, and the leaves had fallen from the middle tree. The youngest brother took his horse and dog and gold-hilted sword that his father gave him with wisdom and learning, and off he set. Each road was even, and each path smooth for him, and he ran right and straight into the king's house. The king's daughter saw him, and she went to meet and welcome and embrace him. "It was enough to stay away the first night," said she, "without staying from me the last night. Many a man may have matters of moment with gentlefolks, so that it may not be known when he will come. said he. They went to rest, and he laid a cold sword between them. In the morning he saw the castle, and his brothers had seen it, and he asked the castle that would be. Did I not tell you yesterday and the day before? Said she. You did not, said he. She told him again, and said he must go, happen hard or soft as it might. He went, and he too saw the flattering crone combing her hair. Come up, treasure, said she, son or father of my desire, and the mother of my love, till you tell me your news, and I will tell you mine. He had no good notion of her, and he whipped off her head with his sword, but the sword flew out of his hand, and the crone gasped. She gasped her head with both hands, grasping and gasping, grasping and gasping with both hands, and put it on her neck as it was before. The dog sprang up on the crone, and she struck the generous dog with a club of magic, and there he lay. But the youngest brother went to grips with the crone, and got hold of her club, and with one blow to the top of her head, she was on the earth in a wink of an eye. He went forward and up a little, and saw his two brothers side by side, pillars of stone. He gave a blow to each one with the club, and they were again men. They took the keys from the crone and searched the castle. They found one room full of gold, one room full of silver. They found a room full of fine clothing, a room full of saddles, and a room full of bridles, a room full of men of stone, and a vessel of balm for bringing forth spirits or life again. They came back to the king's house, rejoicing. The king, growing old, the eldest son of the father, took his wife, and she was crowned queen, he was crowned king. And the pair of the brothers stayed a year and a day in the house, and then they went on their journey home with gold and silver and all the other stuff. And if they had not died since then, they are still alive this very day. The end. That was a very long story. Not only was it a long story, it was a very weird one as well. It reminded me of another one that I've read, but not quite the same. But the wording's very off, it's very peculiar. So I hope you do enjoy this one. It's my least favourite, but it's still part of the book, so therefore it has to be told. That's kind of how I do it, I'm afraid. I tell them all, even though, like I say, this is my least favourite, I have to admit. Please subscribe if you can and hit the like button. It really helps. Many blessings and thank you.